as I said earlier, I get 20 emails from undergraduate students who want to do research. But if none of them shows up at my office door, I don't follow up on these emails. It's just impossible, I can't do that. So if you don't show this initial step of motivation, say like, listen, I read about your research, I'm really interested in this and that, which graduate student can I talk to and see if there's a spot for me, or if there's a spot maybe in a month or something like that. So if you show this form of motivation, it's an initiative, it's usually never a problem to make that happen. Plus you have to be willing to put in the time. So it's a commitment that you have to do. Usually, I mean, throughout the chemistry department for undergraduate research, it's usually a minimum of 20 hours a week. Anything that is less than 20 hours a week is really hard to get something to work. Because you have to be aware that if you join a lab, you're gonna need training for about at least 5 to 6 weeks until you are actually helping on that project. The time up to that, basically, you usually tend to slow down the progress of a graduate student. So for us, as a motivation, it has to be clear that you're going to be here at least 9 months or a year, or an entire summer, for example, every day, so that it pays off for us. So it's not just something that you can do like to get it on your CV. I did research in the lab, but it's usually it's a commitment that you have to go into. Anyone wants to work for me? Let's make this easy.
I mean, if you're going to go into research and leadership, are there some basic life skills that you need to know before you consider it?
No, essentially not, because everybody is essentially aware that we can't have those. With the lab skills that you get in the training in the chemistry department, you're not on par with what people do on a day-to-day basis in the lab. Because you have to be aware, I mean, we're doing stuff that usually, or we should be doing stuff that nobody has done before. So it's usually things really troubleshooting on a day-to-day basis and coming up with new reactions or new ways to do stuff. So we can't expect you to know that or to have the skills or the tools. Essentially what you have to bring along is essentially the ability to, or the willingness to learn quickly. So, I mean, graduate students are very busy too, and if they have to explain you the same thing like 5 times, and you still make the same mistake, they're going to get a little bit impatient. So the willingness to do stuff. Mistakes are normal. Everybody expects to do that. I break glassware in the lab. If I go back to the lab, that's something that just happens. It's day-to-day. Willingness to learn and to show that. I think that's one of the most important things that you should bring along as a basic skill set. And you should be approachable. That's the other thing. If you're very introverted, it's a little bit difficult. And you probably quickly realize when you look at a lab or look at the people that are working in the lab, there's usually a certain type of lab atmosphere. And if you fit into that, it's usually much easier for you. And let other people help you. Let other people show you how to do things. There's these endless amount of tricks how to do things better, quicker, and easier. And that's basically skills that you can learn from more senior people, whether it be graduate students, whether it be postdocs. So be willing to let them show you tricks. That's basically the best thing you can get out of this undergraduate research.
There's some research research groups that will mostly only consider people who have certain classes that they've taken at that point. So like, if the group is doing organic synthesis, usually they want you to have taken at least one semester of organic, for example. But skills beyond what are taught in the classes here, that's usually not expected.
Anyone else have questions? I guess I'll hear you from here.
I had some questions.
How important are grades when you're looking at qualifications? I know that sometimes they matter, but sometimes they don't matter. So I'm just curiosity.
I can just say this for me, I don't look at those. Not at all.
I do, but I mean, I glance over it. If it's really horrible, it makes me think twice.
For me, for example, what is more important is if one of my colleagues approaches me and says like, that's a really good student. And this is something you actually get if you talk to the faculty, if they know you. You go to office hours or something like that. It's not just showing your face or anything like that, but asking intelligent questions, being curious, wanting to know more than basically what was just taught in the class, showing motivation and interest. And if I hear something like that, I immediately try to get that person.
That's actually true. We do get emails, maybe, unfortunately, very few, maybe 2 or 3 a year, where the PI sends out emails saying, I spoke to this person, highly motivated. If you have space and time to train an undergrad, consider this person. So then you can clearly see that it matters. And usually when you look at these people, they do have great qualifications and so on. But I mean, we don't want to discourage you from studying, but grades are not there.
Yeah, it's not that we rank people according to their grades. It's really more we rank them according to the level of motivation that they have. Because that's more important for us. I mean, grades is one thing. It's a little bit different. There's people who are, I don't want to say this in a negative way, but there's people who are book smart and who are terrible researchers. And there's people who know their basics, but they have golden hands. Yeah? And it would be awesome if this combination could come together. The manual work is something that you can usually acquire. That's a training thing. Yeah? As much as the learning new stuff in the book. Yeah? To bring this together is basically the ideal combination. Yeah? I mean, in the lab, at least we do, and in cell culture, it's probably not exactly the same. It's still a lot of like really nifty little things you have to put together, mix them at the right time, precise. If you weigh out stuff, it matters if you put in a gram or if you put in 10 grams. So it's things like that. The thing that I'm most worried about in the beginning with an undergrad student is usually the safety issue. They have to go through a certain training in order for me to be confident that they don't hurt themselves. Yeah, that's my biggest concern actually. Yeah, because ultimately I'm responsible for if something goes wrong, and I have to make sure that you as an undergrad get the appropriate training so that nothing goes wrong. Yeah. So it's still a chemistry lab, and everybody here is probably aware that we have a couple of nasty things in the lab now. And this is one of the things that I'm concerned most about.
I do look at grades when somebody applies to work with me, but the difference between an A and a B is not really a big deal to me. If I see more than one C on a transcript, I get a little bit worried because I think, well, either one of my concerns is that that person really should be devoting more time to their schoolwork and won't have the time to devote to working with me, or maybe has some really severe fundamental misunderstandings about the material. And I'm not talking about like in your English class, I'm talking about like in the science classes that are relevant. But so C's and below, I think are kind of a warning sign. It doesn't mean that absolutely not. It just means
Yes.
But the difference between B's and A's is probably not a big deal.
Yeah, but you have to be aware that this is usually also reflected in the way you show your motivation, right?
That's true.
So if you consistently get grades of C or below in the science
It's
classes,
kind of a warning that maybe there's a motivation issue.
there's probably a motivation issue somewhere. So it's not the grade itself, it's more overall package.